Hi, everyone. Welcome to the AMA. We're recording so that we can grab some sound bites from this and grab some things that we can talk about, and share with the community who can't make it today. So, obviously, if just so you're aware, we're recording it. If you want to type any questions to us, you can put them in the chat. You can put them in Telegram as well, or you can, as we get to the Q&A, absolutely, the idea here is we're having a conversation. So just ask us the questions you have. So, we're really excited to be here with you. So, David, do you want to run through the agenda of what we want to do today?
Yeah, that sounds great. Let me just load it up. Alrighty. Okay, so gonna kick off, and I think that we've been hinting to some of the updates in Telegram and thought it was best to just jump on a call with everyone and go through some of the changes. The first is the narrative, and we're going to jump in and explain a little bit around how we're immediately moving to creating value and working with customers and building from there. Going to talk through some of the team structural changes and ION and RedGrid. We're going to talk through the third item on the agenda of renewable energy credits and some of the work that we've kicked off in that area over the course of the year. Then we're going to go into mini grid and Internet of Things style solutions, the longer term vision, and how that's actually coming up a little bit faster than we've expected, and what we're doing and planning for in that area. Then we're going to go through a little bit of the website update, branding update, and also some of the tools that we'll be empowering people with who are in the community who are part of the energy industry. And finally, a bit of a Q&A.
Brilliant. So I guess let's start with the team the team kind of updates, and I guess this narrative you mentioned as well, David, like the thing that would change right now on where we're going as an organization is it was really important that we looked at reality of what was happening in the energy markets and what ION can actually deliver. And so we've really shifted for what we're going to be doing as an organization to how can we build the steps to the future to get to that kind of end goal, which is decentralized ownership of data and transactions in energy that can actually enable affordable, accessible, clean energy for everyone. So we kind of leapt through to that end point really fast. Okay, great, let's do this and get this out there. And what we found is over the last 2 years is that really just the industry in the world is not quite ready for it. And so we really started to work on, okay, what can we develop and deliver right now that actually provides real value to an organization and to a community immediately, build those steps towards it. And that's kind of where we've really changed how we're approaching the rollout and delivery of what ION has always wanted to do. So the goal remains exactly the same. The objective remains exactly the same. Partnership with Holochain and how we do that. I mean, that's why we have David here and me here. Like we're completely focused on that, but we need to make sure we can actually deliver something that makes value to people right now so that they can actually see the impact that it can bring in the future. So that's kind of a bit of a shift in narrative there, just to make sure that we are kind of doing things that make sense to get us there. So over the last year on the team side of things, you'll have seen from messages and through various communications, although our communication has been low, the reason it's been low is because we went through a funding crunch last year at RedGrid, and as well with the crypto crunch in more generally. And so we had to, on the RedGrid side of things, basically it was everyone had to put tools down and we had to change the teaming entirely. And at that point, we had to make some decisions about where it was going and tried to push it forward in a few different ways, and it just really kind of wasn't working. And so what's happened with the team there is that Simon's taken RedGrid as the CEO of RedGrid, and Well, could you mute on? Yeah, thank you. So Simon's working and as the CEO of RedGrid now, and has moved on a kind of AI direction, which is really great. Still the same end goal, I think, but it's he's taken that to take it in that direction, which is working really well. And David and I are working on ION. So we've split the organizations apart to make them more independently or organizationally independent so that they can actually make decisions and move quickly. And so I think that's actually, yeah, it's working a lot better than it was before, because now we can actually focus on kind of key things that are making sense at that point in time. So that's what's happened with the team. And David and I have just been working over the last, what is it? Is it nearly December? Last 11 months, just steadily working on finding customers and bringing customers in for ION. So that has been our work. And just on, just the two of us, just working quietly with great networks, finding really good people. And that's what we'll go through in a minute. And so that's the kind of update on the team. So we're running a really lean ship. We've got Willem running community and working on business development, and David and I pushing through with partnerships. But what's really interesting, we reflected on this last night, is that what we're doing in this quiet work in the background is really actual real work and setting the scene for what's going on in the future. And that's why we've been so quiet. And so we haven't communicated around trying to create bluster. All we've done is try and create real projects and real partnerships. And so we can talk about some of that today. So that's why it's been pretty quiet. Hopefully that's going to be changing. 2024 is a commercialization and sort of phase, and that will hopefully give us more opportunity to talk about things. But we're not going out to talk about things that aren't real. We're only going to be talking about things that are actually happening. So yeah, that's our focus. David, is there anything you wanted to add to that?
I think with the other shift, so because I think you talked through a little bit about the team. So for me, obviously, I'd been part of ION from the start with Adam and Simon. And as we started working and it became clear that, that the two different businesses were going their different way. One of the primary objectives for me was firstly to make sure that ION is successful. And secondly, to be able to take kind of actually a lot of the vision and story and work out what is really feasible today. I'm an outsider to the energy industry, and I would say that it is very much like an incumbent industry. It's not as fast moving as other industries. So having a startup with a big ambition is fantastic, but you actually have to get on the ground and be part of the industry to be able to open up opportunities, especially when we're thinking about holochain powered grids and accounting systems and all of that. You have to be embedded in the industry to then start moving with some of these solutions. It seemed a lot harder to just sort of be on the outside, build something, and then have, and then believe everyone would come. So what Adam and I set out to do, and I'd say that the narrative that it's not that you've been working on, but like the conversations we've been having with customers and potential customers has come down the line of like, where can we create value today, right? And in creating value today, then what opportunities does that bring to be able to create value tomorrow, the next day, and the next day? And yeah, that's been our primary focus. And so I think we're going to transition to talk about renewable energy credits. But that's as we've sifted through with the various conversations we've been part of, what has been really clear is renewable energy credits are a great place to start. Right? New emerging market, lots of spreadsheets, processes, things not managed, but a value creator for a business. Right? Actually, massive opportunity for a lot of new businesses to be onboarded into the industry as well, because they've got like solar at their warehouse and factory, etc. Right? So fragmented, new industry, opportunity for value creation, opportunity for cost savings, a perfect way for emerging technology to break in. What becomes really interesting as we start to look at the energy credits, we sort of sit in the middle of a new industry. And then there's opportunity on the liquidity side for a marketplace trading environment. And then there's also massive opportunity on the verified data side. The better the data that's backing the credits, the more liquidity come to those credits. So you end up actually with an end-to-end holochain blockchain story, which is one of those things we were very much looking for: integration, end-to-end story, adopting technologies that are where people are ready, and being in the position to move with people as they want to take on more innovation. So yeah, that would be my addition to the narrative. What we're trying to do is meet customers where they're at, hit the sweet spot where people are eager to take on a new solution that solves a problem, become embedded, and then scale out the solutions from there.
Yeah, perfect. Exactly. It's a really good point, Dave, on that. The industry takes time here. They're not fast moving at all. Like this is the biggest. I mean, for context, this is the biggest industrial transformation we've seen or ever. It's bigger than the original industrial revolution. The transition that's going to happen to net zero in the next 10 years that needs to happen, or by 2050 for full net zero, is going to be the biggest one we've ever seen. So in terms of scale and pervasiveness within the economy, and energy is at the core of it. So we're not tackling tiny issues here. And we're also dealing with companies that have been doing the same thing for 60, 70 years. So it's a really different way of doing things. But anyway, I'm going to share a document here that is, so can you guys see that, the IOEN Rec support? Yeah, okay, cool. So this is a document that's going to be up online soon, but I wanted to give you guys kind of heads up on what that looks like. And this is the structure and approach of what we're looking at. So this is basically the rework strategy of what IOEN's doing. So stage 0 was launching the basic open source protocol. So we've got that out. That exists. It's on GitHub. You guys can see that. It's the stuff we did with Monash 2-3 years ago. It's all up there. It's live. Anyone can take it, fork it, use it. That's totally fine. And so we're really excited. That's great that's out there. What we found is, obviously, as we talked about, it was hard to get that adopted and move across. So great. Let's deliver that. Let's let it sit there, and let's go back to some sort of structural parts that we need to get this to work. And so this is what David was talking about, this REC certificates. So renewable energy certificates are really, as David said, a really interesting part that is basically paving the way how organizations can be part of a renewable energy future without actually they may be part of buying it, or they may be part of deploying technology.
Super early ones.
So what we've got here is, David's already talked through this. We're working through intricate spreadsheets that people are just finding very difficult. And we give people the opportunity to start to tokenize what's happening in those renewable energy certificates. Now, what's really interesting then, once we start tokenizing it, we can open up opportunities for liquidity and open up micro investment opportunities for people that sit with it as well. Now, here's the cool thing. We are working with an organization called PV Blocks, who's based out of Singapore, that is delivering this across grids in Southeast Asia. So PV Blocks is a really interesting organization. They're emerging PV Blocks as a company, but the people behind it have got 36 grids running in Myanmar, a whole bunch of solar deployed across Southeast Asia with very large tier 1 corporates. And so they are doing really interesting, good stuff, because what they're saying here is a lot of renewable energy certificates so far have been just massive utility size solar and wind. Okay, so I've got a big solar farm. I'm going to get some renewable energy certificates and sell them. That's actually relatively easy to do. The challenge that's coming, that we're hearing from customers, is that there are more and more decentralized power plants, power plant on top of your house, all over the place, that want to be aggregated into renewable energy certificates, but can't be. That's a real challenge the industry is facing. And so PV Blocks is doing exactly that. They provide a marketplace for people to install solar with great solar installation organizations. And so what we're doing is helping them aggregate that and pull that into a digitized economy. And so as soon as we pull it into a digitized economy, we can start to open some opportunities for increased investment for them, increased deployment, and through transparency and data capture that we'll have and placing into the tech system that we've got, we start to create a transparent liquid market that sits around it. And it's real, it's happening, and we're already integrating. So that's what's really, it's really exciting. It's a bit early in the morning for me to be too excited, but I'm really excited about what this looks like, because it actually is doing something really important. And so we'll be sharing this and putting up online. But basically, you can see here, it's giving us a number of different opportunities here in these bullet points that are saying why it's creating value. Let's talk a bit about that before we get into the rest of it. David, is there anything you want to add on the rec side of things, because on the product side, that you're hearing from the other side?
No, I mean, I'd say that we're leveraging some two open protocols. So the semi-fungible token system, like Dave Meister and I, one of the core holochain engineers, and I created for asset tokenization, and then the system around that, as well as the RAIN, which is the on-chain smart contract language for building liquidity for real-world assets. So we're able to leverage those technologies, meet PV blocks where they're at, and focus. We've got a whole series of steps in the future to continue to integrate with their platform. But first step is around renewable energy credits. They say they're offering a managed service to their customers. We're integrated to be the decentralized part of that service. And it's been very exciting. I guess it just pushes straight away to end to end, because one of them, the big opportunities and challenges is, how does the data that backs these renewable energy certificates, like how is that captured? And this is where we'd expect to see some of that original work from ION over the next year or two come into play. But what's going to happen is work's going to be coming into play on tier one facilities with a fantastic partner, and then other partners beyond that. So just being embedded in the ecosystem and scaling out from there.
That embeddedness is it's a really key part. It's the embeddedness is as David said, at the ecosystem level, but it's also like technically working with partners like this who are saying, hey, we've got this data, it can verify whether renewable energy is real or not. How can we then communicate that to government entities and others who are trying to buy these certificates? And this is exactly what ION can do at this point. Using Guild and the RAIN protocol, we're basically providing a system whereby they can see the data direct. So here's the line from customers: the government needs a direct line of sight to the original data from that IoT device. That is actually very kind of hard to do and prove it's real without sticking it into something with multiple points of data that can then be placed into the blockchain and verified at that point in time. So that actually is a perfect use case for what we're doing, because it solves a real problem. And that embeddedness, as David said, means that as we embed across two ways: the level that people know what ION is and what ION is doing. Okay, great. There's that embeddedness. People understand us. The second part is actually physical embeddedness. Like, we are actually connected to the devices. And as we sign up more partners who want to work on this problem, we are able to embed ourselves technically within the ecosystem and then open up those opportunities for the holochain based asset trade, as we talked about. So then stage two, so this was kind of like, this was 2022, 2023, stage two, 2024 to 2030, agent integration. Now, long time frame there, 6 years, because you're going to see these stages actually start to overlap quite a bit. The idea here is that, and what we're already seeing is that there's a whole bunch of new energy players out there who have got new technologies doing interesting new things, and which are not directly in the mainstream right now, but will be part of the energy future. So without getting too technical, when you look at all the projections for the future of where our clean energy is going to come from, there's a whole bunch of utility solar, a whole bunch of utility wind, and some large scale like that, a bit of decentralized, a bit of sort of, normal distributed energy assets on people's roofs. But then there's this kind of like bit on the top of the graph that's like, and other, it basically says. And the and other, no one really knows what it is. And yet that is a significant proportion of where we need to get to deal with our energy crisis. And so this is the and and the and other part here is what are those kind of technologies that are making sorry, so I can hear someone. If there's a question, if there is a question, you're willing to jump in and
no, he's on a call.
Say hello. Oh, okay. So the and other, so we can now, what we're promoting here and how we can deal with partners is who have got interesting new energy products which are starting to commercialize. So they've got some traction in the market, they're starting to get some customers, but they're not the mainstream yet. We're looking to integrate with them because the agent-based system will work very, very well for those new energy technologies, which are not yet fully mainstream, but will become part of that mix in the future. And so just two simple approaches here. So we start to embed agents within that technology at a software level. So we connect into them, and ultimately the agent gets placed into the hardware. This was always part of the roadmap for ION, but we just didn't really have a tangible way of doing it. And now with the conversations we're having, we're starting to see a tangible way of doing it because those organizations can benefit immediately from having an agent-based approach because they are leapfrogging the legacy issues of communications that we've seen previously, and for us, it starts to create that network fabric of agents that can discuss and talk and gossip with each other to start that transactive energy system. So this is the next stage of where we're going. Essentially, it's starting with work with PV blocks, but that's focused on that use case of renewable energy certificates. This is focused on this could include renewable energy certificates, but it also includes that ability to start the embryonic beginnings of those agent-based microgrids. Did I explain that well enough, David, or is there something else you want to add to that?
No, that's great.
And then there's three use cases, clear use cases here: mesh networking, integration, operations, and benefits. So this is what we talk to people about when we're talking to them. What are they looking to do? How do we help them improve their network communications? And as an example, why that's important in operations, why it's important. I was at an event on Monday hearing from the major energy player here in Australia who's saying, hey, we've got all these smart meters, but they're all running on an old communications system. So they can't connect as well anymore. So these things were deployed 15 years ago, and now they can't really do what they're meant to do, even though all the data is there. So how can we help organizations leapfrog those kind of challenges of legacy systems? That's kind of what we're interested in. Let's move to, I'm just looking at time. Yeah, cool. So the next one is our kind of later stage. Where is actually ION going in terms of what its core mission is? And its core mission was to empower communities to own and to manage and to benefit from a decentralized energy economy. And so that has always been the goal. And that's kind of the personal driver as well for me. This is why it's worth doing. And if you look at any of my background, you can see it's all been around how do we enable new innovation systems for communities and energy. What we're doing with this, and we're in discussions with, and we can't talk about it because it's too early stage, to be honest, too early stage to talk about who they are, but we're in discussions with some really good organizations who are working on mini grids across the world, but mostly in sub-Saharan Africa, for how our system with a currency, an energy currency system can help those microgrids, mini grids deal with fiat fluctuations that are making it very difficult for people to pay for their electricity, or even to have electricity invested into those communities. And so the key issue here is that there are real challenges for developing countries that have not been able to capitalize on what's happened in the clean energy market so far, and to scale that up. And so large organizations are trying to figure out how to do that. What we're doing, and the simple thing is we're just helping to provide a technology layer that sits with that. And so it's sort of early stage discussions, but advanced stage thinking, if that makes sense. So we've been thinking about this a lot. We've been discussing it with them, and now we are, moving through into how we can figure out how we might implement it. And so, it's really annoying when someone says, "Oh, there's something really interesting. We can't tell you it is. It's just the way it is. We can't. It's just." It's no, we're not going to say anything until we've got a deal signed, right? Otherwise, it just kind of doesn't make sense. But we're really, very excited about it because it's a sort of pilot program, but it can actually show the value of the IOEN protocol, how community currencies could work and how they will work in the future, but also with embeddedness from stage 1 and stage 2 into real programs. And this will take a few years to roll out in total, but it's the beginning part of that, which is great. And that's why it's 2024 onwards. This isn't a quick win. It's not a fast and loose play. This is something that's going to take a fair few years. But what we're seeing right now is the acceleration will help us make that fast. Acceleration in adoption of these kind of technologies will help us do that. We'll share this, but basically, like, it's the idea here is that we're helping infrastructure, we're integrating the protocol, and then working with education. So helping communities understand what's going on, how they can use it. It is open source ultimately, and helping so that it's actually truly decentralized ownership over what those grids look like. And so it's not monopolized by a certain specific industry actor. It's actually created as a way to help communities take ownership over it. But also to open up, and this links right the way back to what we're doing right now with tokenization of renewable energy certificates, is funding and infrastructure that can be supported through the blockchain. And so that is actually where we see the future going from this. First of all, we're implementing and working out in real places, but then it opens up this opportunity for organizations, donor countries, individuals around the world to start to support and invest in them. And that essentially then leads us to the future of energy accounting systems, so that we end up being able to transact with each other securely, safely, easily. No one has to be the fighter pilot to do it, but it actually works for people. And then we actually have created that end-to-end solution for IOEN. So, David, did I miss anything on those last one as well?
No, I mean it's really comprehensive. I think, the point is that the more we deliver, and the more we deliver solutions today that people want and need, the more opportunities we have in front of us to be able to deliver all of this stuff. We don't see really a decentralized energy. We don't really see a credible decentralized energy player being able to offer these things. Like, they're either using blockchains that don't have liquidity, or private chains that don't necessarily make sense for liquid markets and all those kind of things. We see the trend happening really, really strongly across Europe and Asia on moving systems on chain. And and we see a huge thread in terms of verified data. And so I think, like, we're just making sure that we're positioned to be able to take advantage of where we see the trends going, and make sure we're embedded in the right conversations with the right people, make sure people hear about us, and make sure that when we do, it's because we've got things that are deployed and live, and that we're building from there. So I think, that's it was good strategy, and that the tactics are the absolute best that we could determine for where we are, and I think they're going to be successful.
That's it. So I guess what can you, as our community, expect from us going forward? We expect to be able to share with you and hear more customer progress. So as we're signing up customers and working with them, what does that look like? As we're implementing, what does that look like as well? That's our aim. A few sort of tangible updates would be January, February to have, we'll be doing a refresh on the website, refresh on the branding and what we look like, because we're kind of resetting as an organization. I mean, that's what we've been working. 2023 has been a big reset year for us. And then, as David mentioned at the very beginning, the tools for the community to help us. And what I mean by that is, providing enough collateral online and with our channels that we have very interesting people involved with ION who are former engineers who know people in the industry across the world. I mean, Willem's in Europe and knows a whole bunch of people in this industry as well. And so, but to date, to this point in time, you haven't been able to really go out and try and help us find new partners because we weren't providing the collateral that makes it easy for you, and we didn't have a product that would really make sense to them. So it'd be very hard to go out and do that. So what we want to do around mid-January, early February is get those tools to you guys, so that if you have people who working in the industry or working on these kind of projects, you can say, hey, well, look, maybe have a look at ION. You can chat with Adam and David and see how they might be able to help. And so that's really, we're looking for help from our community to find those new energy players who are deploying, so that we can start to have those conversations with them. And that's all it is right now. It's just a conversation. And if it doesn't work, that's okay. And we just move on to the next one and just build out that network. And that's been our strategy all year, and it's the one that seems to be working really well. So and then that's it really, and we'll go into 2024 and keep moving forward. So with that, I think let's open. This isn't Ask Me Anything. So we've got, let's start. We've got 23 minutes, 25 minutes. What questions do you guys have? You can put them into the chat. You can also put it in Telegram if you want, or you can just ask it. So please just ask us. Yeah, great. Okay. So we've got a question. Okay, I've got a couple of questions in here. What do you need from industry that you can't achieve yourself to make ION a success? So what are we dependent on? Yeah, that's a good question. What do we need from industry? I guess I guess I'll have a crack first, and then David knows this really well as well. So what do we need? We need people in industry who can grasp this vision and understand why it's important, first of all. So it needs to be a person who says, okay, I understand where this is going, why that's important. Because what happens in energy industry, there's a lot of engineers who've been there for a very long time doing good things, but they're very risk averse because they're based on making sure there's 100% uptime electricity and no one's getting killed, essentially. And so that's what they're doing. So we need people who are in there who've got some influence and who want to see that new vision in the future. So we're dependent on other people in the industry who are deploying technology to listen and chat with us and take the time to understand why it's important. And it takes a lot of time for us to talk through it. And then the second part is we need those technologies that are emerging and that exist already, that are being rolled out in certain areas of the world, that need some support. That's where, in terms of, they need other software that can help them commercialize components of it. That's what we need to do. Large national energy companies are good and useful, but the sales cycle and the ability to work with them takes a long time. So even with technologies that they understand really well, you're looking at a 2-year sales cycle, just because they have due process to go through internally. So that's what we need from industry. David, is there anything else that you're thinking on that?
Well, you think part of what we've been explaining is how to shortcut this conversation. In other words, like a lot of when we started with PV blocks, I think the known Adam, and of course, like when we're talking about this peer-to-peer energy system, like that's a great vision, but there's nothing tangible for them in that conversation right now, because they're and their customers just aren't quite ready. And I think like that's where with ION there'd been a big focus 2022 to build systems and have different groups in Australia, different community groups adopt those systems, but we hadn't ever quite got there. And so this focus actually says, well, within the energy industry. What's a pain point today that we can technically solve today? So actually, that dramatically reduces our need for anyone in the industry to be or do anything. It becomes just way more pragmatic, right? Does a company want to offer a managed rec service or a managed renewable energy credit service? Do people want to be able to create renewable energy credits on a distributed, decentralized network? If so, great, we're able to support. Right? And once you offer one thing, then you start offering the next and the next and the next. So that's the strategy. I think and what it does is it allows you to build relationships based on delivery and credibility, and based on being embedded in an ecosystem, and based on therefore the creation of trust over time, which starts to mitigate that challenge. And actually then over time it's in our favor, because we're one of the major incumbents delivering services and products into the industry in the decentralized way. And so as things start to become more mesh network, IoT network, we want distributed networks embedded in devices, we want verified data for tracking, all these kind of things, all these areas that we can help, we're the people that they turn to.
Yeah, that's right. And that kind of who are the people we can help is the key bit. Like, what are we actually doing that's really helping them to solve a problem?
Yeah, and I can see Romain just asked on the software side. So Phil is with RedGrid. On the software side, as we said earlier, we're using right now in deployment two technologies. One is a semi-fungible token system for renewable energy credits. And then the second will be for building liquid markets, a smart contract language called Rain. And then what we'll start to do is start embedding some of the more holochain style verified data solutions as the existing customers are demanding those, and or having them deployed directly when there's the inbound demand.
Yeah.
Right. I think the next one, maybe Adam, for you is RedGrid a holochain project or only AI for now?
Yeah. So I'm not well positioned to really answer that specifically. I think that's more definitely a question for Simon. I know that Simon and the team, we've all had the same vision with ultimately embedded transactional network on holochain. So I imagine that there's definitely that thinking happening there. And obviously Simon and I and the team worked together for 4 years putting this together. So yes, I imagine there's definitely some work happening on that in the background, but it's probably a question directly for Simon. And the RedGrid has a Telegram channel as well. RedGrid does, that you can sort of jump into to use that. So I'm sorry I can't answer that one more specifically. I don't want to speak out of turn. I want to make sure that they give you the right communication. We're not we won't talk about a token price, but we'll leave that for you guys to discuss. But better communication strategy, yes. Thank you, Zach. Yeah, you're right. You're absolutely right. You're right. And so our strategy for communications is going to be, have we got something that's real and tangible? And we can talk about the things that are coming up that are becoming real and tangible. That's okay. We can talk about that, but we're not going to. We'll be focusing on what have we done that has happened, that is making sense for people. We're not going to come out and just for the sake of putting things out, just to sort of say something, which we've done before. I don't think it really works. I'd rather say something that we've done. So, but as we gain momentum in the organization, hopefully we'll have more of that to share. So yes. Maybe David, this one, what about the project, the line in Saudi Arabia design, as a technology fit in their vision, actualizing it? So I think you're talking about Neom, is that right? From Red? Yeah.
Yep, sure. We're actually, it's a good point. Yeah, we've got a contact there, and I'm actually catching up with him tomorrow.
But it's a good, yeah. So it's a really good point. Do we plan to expand to African projects? What exactly would the point? What exactly would be the point where you integrate? Do you have hardware to track data directly? First answer, do we plan to expand to African projects? Yes, absolutely. When the time is right and those partners are there, ready. And that's what we're in discussions with some partners around at the moment. Where do we integrate? Essentially, we integrate from the very beginning in terms of what is the design and structure of what the projects are. So start from the very beginning and be involved in those discussions so we can start to talk through what ION currencies and integration looks like. And so then that then becomes, as we had in our stage 2, software and then hardware integration. So what are the devices that they're running? What are the kind of internet applications that they're putting on that? And how can we then embed an agent within that? And then how does that software system then help those mini grids and microgrids start to communicate better with each other? So that's kind of the planning, operationalization with software and hardware. And then do we have hardware to track the data directly? It wouldn't be our hardware, but it'd be hardware that we're integrated with. And that's exactly right. So right now, with the renewable energy certificates, we're just taking signals. We'll be taking APIs of that, but ultimately it will be an agent embedded within that hardware, and that's why it's important that we're involved in this in the design phase as well. I've got one, Sam. Thank you for that. On we should chat with Ecotricity. Yeah, that's really, really, really great. So if you have anyone that you think we should chat with, and you think this person could get this, they really like it, please, just message us and direct us. I'll follow up with you on that one, Sam, for Dale. Vince, that's great. So grids are usually run by big companies. How are you planning to start working with them? They're usually very conservative. Yeah, that's right. The national grids in our countries are run by, formerly state-owned enterprises, some still state-owned enterprises now, or some now privatized. They're very conservative. This is why we've gone to different grids in different places, because those major grids are conservative, and they may very well, as David said at the beginning, play with a private blockchain, start to do a little bit of peer-to-peer within very small places, but it's not scale. They're not looking to scale that in any meaningful way. We've had those conversations and still have those networks with those organizations, and that's good. But I think our strategy is to work with those organizations, work with other hardware players who are already working with them. So we don't have to go through that pain of trying to work with a DNSP or a distribution network service provider or a transmission service provider. We can work with the organizations who've already solved those problems. And so that's where we think our advantage is, to go and actually get projects working with them. When do we expect Ion Fuel to launch? How will swap from Ion token to Ion Fuel work? Can investors also swap Ion Fuel, and how will it work for them? The answer for that is we don't have a date when that would launch with the swap. We're working through a new token system. Well, it's not a new token, it's the same structure, but it's just the operationalizing that and making it tangible. We're working through that with these projects we're talking about right now. So that's our stage 3. So it won't be anytime very soon. I can't give you a date on it, but what we can say is that's what we're working through with these partners, especially in these new mini grids, because that's where there'll be an ability to use their local level holochain currency with a mezzanine or the kind of iron token at the top.
Yeah, I think Adam is, yes. Look, there's especially one active conversation that moves us in this direction. I'd be cautious of getting too excited just in this instant about Ion Fuel, only because I know it's also going to be important to launch Hollow Fuel first and learn. It doesn't make sense to be launching another distributed mutual credit currency just before we've learned some of the lessons that we learn with Hollow Fuel. What I think is more likely to happen is that next year there are a few, like these smaller local microcredit systems or local accounting systems that start to get deployed, which is like part of the original ION currency white paper. And then ION fuel can start to come in as it's required as a whole series of these smaller grids start to need to be connected. And ION fuel makes sense as a currency to start powering this ecosystem. So for right now, so I think we can start to see a picture of how that's going to weave together. But the focus is on being in a place where ion fuel is natural and immediately very, very valuable because of the role it can play in bringing things together. And this is the path that we're taking to be able to get there.
Yeah. Absolutely.
I think Cordy's got a few few questions. So are you guys connected to Coasis DAO? I mean, yes, we know the team. I mean, close to the team. But I don't know. Tell us more what you're thinking there. And then I love the EVM binding with Holochain and very close to African communities, so I can make the connection. Would love to see if it's possible to attach my EVM compatible Bitcoin supported names with ION. Yes. So Cordy, I don't know how much you've been tracking Fractal Tribute, and that there's also a really, really cool game coming out. And both of those are demonstrating binding between EVM and Holochain with Rain. And as I mentioned earlier, we're using Rain for the liquidity side of the renewable energy credits. And so I think there's actually really, really exciting opportunities. That's becoming a pretty exciting pattern. The way we're able to bind these networks together without taking on the bridging risk and other risks when you're generally binding blockchains. So please do follow up on Telegram or over email, and we can have a look. And yeah, I think Adam is also building some good relationships across Africa. There are other kind of people in the Holochain ecosystem and in and about our world that are also looking to do similar things. So it'd be very good to get connected and get started. Yeah. Okay. Yep. Okay, perfect. So Cordy will reach out via Telegram. I think you've got our details. Adam, do you want to? Oh yeah, what's the best group? I'll just DM you.
Yeah. Anita, have we heard of energycentral.com? I actually haven't heard of them. We worked for them in the late 90s. Yeah, absolutely. I'd love to. Please, yeah, if there's things you can help with there, that would be really, really great. So thank you, Anita. That would be awesome. Telegram or email is really good. So how to reach us? Yes, the best way is through Telegram or just the email info@ion.tech. Or you can write to me or David, Adam@ion.tech, David@ion.tech. Just do that directly. The holofuel question from Red. This is ion fuel. Okay. I think you're talking about, is there a size of the network? Okay, so I guess we can't really talk about there won't be one. There won't be one. So look, ion fuel, we probably will park it for today, but generally what the approach to ion fuel is that ion fuel exists within a specific mini grid, microgrid that's based on the energy assets that are there. So there are energy assets that are backed. So the local currency is backed by an asset. What that means is there's any asset that you have, a physical asset like a battery or a solar generator or anything that produces, consumes, or stores electricity is an asset. And the ones that produce or consume or store energy will be the asset that is that backs the currency. And so ion fuel then becomes a independent sort of currency that works within a closed system that then can be off-ramped through the mezzanine level, which is the ION token, through to others as needed. So the technicalities of which networks you need to swap that and how that would happen are all to be decided when we start to work through design phase with people on implementation. So it's a good kind of thread of thinking that we need to work through, especially as we talk of these partners for next year. Sorry, I can't answer more on that one right now. Can we make a video that explains what ION is so it's easier for people to promote the project? Yes, great idea. Yeah, that's a good call. That's a good one for early next year, early next year, so that we can help that with the communications.
Yeah, just to be clear, I think like the preference, it's always easier to talk about something that we're doing rather than something that we're thinking about doing. So part of taking the time for this conversation was because we're doing things. We're integrating with PV Blocks, and PV Blocks is integrating technology into their platform right now. And, we've been aligning on the business goals over a series of months. And then, we've got the early stage conversations with African microgrids, and we've got some panels being shipped to, one of our houses to be able to deploy holochain on, to be able to test for what something might look like in 6 months' time. So these are all things that are slowly happening. So what we're planning to do then is, obviously you saw some of the content. Videos are also fine to talk about things that are happening. I think that's absolutely crucial to reiterate, is this is all about making things happening now that get us to the vision. And I think like the big shift is these long-term systemic visions happen through a series of actions. They don't happen because you imagine them and then build for that end state. They happen because you take step after step after step, and the end state emerges. So that's the kind of content that's going to be really important to produce, that just helps more people take this first step.
I think that's a brilliant way to wrap it up. That's exactly right. And that's what we've been doing. We've been focused on those little steps. We've got the vision. Okay, great. Let's go back now to this initial steps that we've got to take to do it. Yeah, that's a great way of finishing, I think. Are there any other final questions that anyone wants to ask us before we wrap up? No? Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you for joining us today. Thank you for sticking with us and thoughtful questions. I really appreciate it. We'll be in touch out on Telegram and on our communications. It's going to be, we're just working through these conversations. Obviously, there's the holiday season coming up. We'll keep you updated as soon as we know more things about what we're doing. As David said, we will communicate when we've got tangible things to talk about, and then we can hopefully provide that toolbox as well for you guys first, early doors next year, so that we can start to ask that about those partners. If you have any partners, you have anyone you know that could be interested in this, please share it. We'd love to hear from them. Thank you. David, anything from your side?
No, all good. Very exciting 2024.
Beautiful. Yeah, so Willem at Hard Driven in Telegram will be there. Ping him, ping us, and by all means, let's get onto it. 24 is really exciting. Okay. Thanks everyone. Have a wonderful rest of the day or evening or wherever you are. Thank you all again. I really appreciate you being here. Take care, you guys.